And welcome to our agenda for Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. Welcome to members of County Council, staff, the press, and the public. Call the meeting to order by resolution. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor Bergeron, that the meeting of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry be hereby called to order.
All those in favor? Motion is carried, none opposed. Welcome to Alison McDonald from North Stormont, who will be sitting in for Councillor Frank Landry today. That means we're one over the McDonald limit on County Council today, but we'll move forward anyways. Adoption of the agenda, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that Council approve the agenda.
Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried, none opposed. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, move on to the adoption of the minutes. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor Broad, that the minutes of the meeting of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, held January 15th, 2024, be adopted as circulated.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to 5.1, delegations. I'd like to welcome the City of Cornwall to present the 2024 Shared Services Budget. Welcome.
Wrong glasses. Through you, Your Worship, City of Cornwall is happy to be here today to present the 2024 budget for shared services. With me is Melissa Morgan. She'll be presenting human services, which includes childcare, OW, which is Ontario Works, and housing services as well. Melissa will be presenting for the Glenstrudden Lodge, and then Chief Lister will join me to present paramedic services.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Melissa.
Good morning, Warden McDonald and members of council. So as Tracy said, I'll be presenting 4 budgets this morning. I'd like to start with Human Services and Ontario Works. The Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services largely funds the Ontario Works budget, and it's important to note that 100% of client benefits are provincially funded. In terms of some key notes that we would like to highlight for Ontario Works for 2024, we do have some general wage increases and some realignment of staff within our department. So oftentimes what we will do is within the Human Services Department, where the demand is needed, we will shift staff accordingly. In terms of our purchase of goods, it's largely due to anticipated trends and client needs. I think one of the biggest things to note with Ontario Works is the implementation of employment service transformation. That was effective January 1st, 2024, and with that came a 22% reduction in funding from the ministry. And so now the difference of that is to be made up with our existing allocation. Certainly we have endeavored to manage that accordingly. However, our caseloads have increased in the last 18 months, and while benefits to clients are 100% uploaded, the administration of benefits is cost shared with the ministry. With that increase in caseload, we had to onboard 3 new FTEs last year, and that was largely due to the increase of asylum claimants coming to our area. As I mentioned, our 2024 notional allocation from MCCSS, they're keeping those levels the same as they were from 2019, and so our 2024 allocation is representative of a $809,000 reduction in 100% provincial funding because of the employment service transfer. Any questions on Ontario Works?
Any questions from members? Perfect, thanks.
In terms of children's services, again, primarily funded by the Ministry of Education. While it's been communicated that our funding allocation with children's services will be redesigned, if you will, that has been delayed, and we have been advised that it will continue to be delayed at least for the first eight months in 2024. And so we are continuing on with the allocation that we have been notified to date from the ministry. Again, similar to Ontario Works, realignment of staff and/or general increases to cost of living. Most of the fluctuation within children's services in the budget here is simply with the continued implementation of the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare, or CWELC. And as we continue to see the percentage increases in CWELC, the fluctuation with that budget, again, is largely the increase in revenue and expenditures, largely in line to the receiving of funds from the ministry and paying of those, some of those revenues off to our childcare providers to offset CWELC expenses. Other than that, there are not many major changes within the children's services budget.
Any questions on child services budget? Seeing none.
In terms of housing, we divide our housing budget into two areas. We have the two principal areas are housing programs. Housing programs are typically all of the things that we would administer out of our 340 Pitt Street office, and they are largely funded 100% by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And so those would be things that you may know as our rent supplement programs, housing and homelessness programs, and those types of things. Whereas housing services was the former local housing corporation, and so that's the direct provision of community housing within Cornwall and SDG. In terms of this budget, there have been several impacts to the budget, positively and negatively. As an example, we have received a reduction of federal funding in the amount of $940,000. However, that was largely due to mortgages coming to an end with some of our providers, and so as mortgages have come to an end, so too has the funding. However, the federal government has reinvested those funds into other programs like the Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit to help offset other programs. We have seen an increase in housing services in the amount of $416,000. Again, that primarily represents the cost of maintaining service level standards, which are mandated by the province, and commitments to our community housing providers. And so what you will see within this budget is that we have an obligation to support our other community housing providers, not just what you would have known as our local housing corporation. There has also been an increase of $1.4 million to continue the ongoing operation of housing. This includes bringing on new units into our portfolio. So we have a full year of our 559th Street building as part of this. As well, we will have approximately half a year of operations of Massey Place and partial operational cost for our Morrisburg project as well. Other factors that would impact this budget include mandated increases that are set by the province. So if the province sets increased costs of indices that are paid to the providers, we have to manage those as well. We are going to see an increase in general wages as there's a collective agreement within this department that has expired and will be negotiated this year. As well, excuse me, we're also implementing year 4 of our 5-year phased-in rent supplement review. And what this is doing is this helps us manage rent supplement agreements we have with private landlords within the community. Some of those agreements are extremely old and can only ever be increased by the rent control guideline. And as we all know, rents have gone through the roof. So as opposed to losing some of these private agreements, we have got a 5-year plan to try and bring those agreements up to more of a marketable rate of rent based on today's amounts. We have brought in some contributions from reserves to help offset some special one-time projects. As an example, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing mandates a 10-year housing and homelessness plan. We've already seen the year 5 update, and so this will be 10 years since the first implementation of that plan. And so we are expecting the ministry is going to want us to update our 10-year housing and homelessness plan. In terms of capital with housing, it should be noted that capital dollars for social housing were mandated in provincial legislation, and this was done as part of the provincial devolution in 2000. And so we are mandated to provide that capital fund to our local housing corporation, which is now in-house. And those funds certainly go to offset a large amount of the capital that we undertake. And I believe you will see, excuse me, in your documents, all of the capital projects that we plan for 2024 for our local housing corporation. And certainly that covers all of our portfolio across the City of Cornwall and the United Counties as well. Are there any questions with respect with housing?
Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, continue.
Thank you. So that's the majority of human services that's under my portfolio. With respect to Glenstoran Lodge, council may remember, I'm not sure if it was at council or if it was at joint liaison, that we notified members that there would be some significant impacts to Glenstoran Lodge with respect to meeting the ministry's mandatory 4-hour minimum care by March of 2025. As a result, we had hired a consultant to come in and do a complete service delivery review. That service delivery review indicated that by March of 2025, we would need upwards of 70 new FTEs. Certainly, we have managed that through the 2024 budget and into 2025 on a based on when we could certainly stagger those hires in. We are anticipating that while we may need to meet certain levels in certain categories, that it is very difficult right now to recruit for some of those areas. And so despite our best efforts in what we're trying to stagger in terms of the onboarding of new FTEs, we're not sure that we will be able to meet that just based on the significant recruitment efforts. We do receive a large amount of funding from the Ministry of Long-Term Care. They will be offsetting some of the increase in our base allocation as well that will help with service delivery review. There are some other changes that have also been excuse me, recommended through the service delivery review. Some of those include a significant increase or investment into our technological infrastructure. Certainly there are some technologies that we could be taking advantage of that in the long run will provide either some savings, direct savings financially, or an investment of time to employees to be able to reallocate to other areas or functions within the lodge. Again, along with the increase in staffing comes a number of increases as well in terms of just other things that we would support onboarding staff with. We do have an increase to contracted services, and so what council may remember is that we typically have been utilizing third-party services to offset some of the vacancies we've had or to ensure that we're meeting service level standards. And so as we onboard full-time employees, it is expected that the cost for third-party services to assist with some of those specialty positions will also decrease. And so that we're hoping over the next 2 years there will be a proportionate relation to the increase in one area and the decrease in another. We also contract out our physiotherapy services, and so that is another area that has been recommended. And so there has been in the 24 budget an increase of other professional services for physiotherapy. Excuse me, in terms of capital for Glenstoran Lodge, Glenstoran Lodge just reached its 25th anniversary and so of that new building, and so the building is starting to see significant wear and tear over the years, and so we have invested quite a bit more into the capital budget for Glenstoran Lodge this year. I think it's important to note that the City of Cornwall as a whole is undertaking an asset management and building condition assessment for all of its buildings. That includes all of our social housing units, Glenstordon Lodge, and our external providers as well. We've assisted them with this procurement as well. Excuse me. And so it will be interesting to note what, not only for our social housing units, but for Glenstordon Lodge, what type of capital investment will be required over the next 10 years to maintain those buildings going forward. And I believe you also have the list of projects that have been approved for Glenstordon Lodge for capital for 2024.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. Do private and nonprofit homes have to meet the same new service level standards of a municipally owned home?
I'm going to say yes, that they all have to. However, we've just been concentrating on Glenstordon Lodge at this point in time, but I do believe that it would be mandated of all private and nonprofit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I remember when we reviewed this in detail at Shared Services, and it was a bit of an eye-popper, this budget. I'm thinking it's probably one of the most challenging budgets you've had to deal with in some time. Just with regards to contracted services, I'm assuming you're referring to agencies when you say that. Have the new hires been almost exclusively through these agencies?
Through Mr. Warden, I just get the good news story that we have hired people. I don't get all the background, but certainly I could, if that is something that you're interested, I could certainly find out from the administrator. But I typically just get that we've hired 3 more nurses and we've hired 3 more RPNs. So I get those good news stories. The struggles to get there, I don't always hear about, other than there are significant struggles to get to that good news story.
Councillor Broad.
Thank you, Warden. And through you and to Councillor, in our annual monthly meetings we have with the Glendora Star Lodge, it's very difficult for us to hire through the agency, as folks at that level are paid quite well versus what our pay level is at, and it gives them flexibility. So typically we haven't been successful recruiting those staff members from our agencies, but certainly it's been a struggle, and we'll probably hear more in my report later.
It's good to know it's your fault, Councillor Broad. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, Bill.
Morning, everybody. I'm here to present the paramedic services for Cornwall, Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. The whys were explained in the joint services meetings. So the discussion will focus on just the broad budget topics. So our revenue, we anticipate, will be a little bit higher from the province, in that they made a general announcement that they'll increase their contributions by 6%. So we increased our revenue line slightly, which hopefully will offset the increase in services and rents. Services and rents are anticipated of what the actuals will be. Cost increases for things like drugs have increased in some places up to 100%. They're not following in line with 3 or 4%, so that's reflective of that. Our CP funding is 100%, and we don't anticipate any changes to that. It doesn't cost the local area any money to run the CP program. And we plan on running that continuously within, although there is a lot of pressure. The CP program is the program where paramedics go in a non-emergency setting into homes to try and prevent emergency calls from happening. Related to that, we've changed our capital slightly. Our capital, we're asking for, we've been approved for 2 new PRUs. Those are the, they look like SUVs with lights and sirens on them, to put CP into them, and they can change gears literally between a paramedic response or a CP response, and they only can do that if they're in that approved vehicle. And then the replacement of capital is really, really difficult. It's part of the supply chain issues. So ambulance replacement, normally we would order an ambulance and get it in the same year. Now it's outwards of 2.5 years. So we're ordering a new ambulance on top of the 3 that we normally just replace to deal with the call volume increasing, as well as the inordinate long delays in getting the ambulances in anyway. That affects our reserves line quite substantially. Pretty much brings us to 0 in the capital reserves. But overall, we're providing the same level of service that we did in 2023 as we did in 2024, anticipating growth in 2024-25. And this is kind of the first step, is getting the ambulance on board. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Any questions or comments? Paramedic services? Seeing none? Thank you to both of you for presenting. And I'm sure these budgets weren't as easy at your council when you went there. I'd like to ask our treasurer to come forward and maybe just to give us the implications of the Cornwall budget on our budget.
So based on the timing differences from when we approved our budget to when the shared services budget with the city went through, there is an increase in the city's budget of approximately $100,000, which we have established a tax rate stabilization reserve many years ago, which is used to offset any fluctuations in timing for budgets. So we do have funds available to offset any increases in the shared services budget. Our tax rate stabilization reserve has approximately $1.5 million.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none? Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, moving on to action requests, corporate services, last resort funding, United Way. There's no motion on this, so I'll, Maureen, will you handle this? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So we're bringing forward 2 reports in this council meeting. The first one is the United Way Last Resort Funding Program. So there was a presentation that was made to council back in November in the fall. And then also during the budget process, there were 2 items that were deferred until the new year, until there was also finalization with other municipal budgets. So for the last resort funding, that item is brought forward on today's agenda. I can confirm that the City of Cornwall approved the funding for their portion of the program of approximately $200,000. So we have the item back in front of council this morning for council's consideration. If council has any questions, I'm happy to take those questions.
Okay, thank you, Madam CAO. Councillor Gato.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, these comments apply actually to the next 2 items on the agenda. Previously, there were some questions around this council table about mandates, so I thought I'd provide some additional context. Section 11(2)(6) of the Municipal Act states that upper tiers may make decisions with respect to the health, safety, and well-being of its residents. I will note that I'm paraphrasing. Further, Section 8.1 of the Municipal Act says the powers of a municipality under this Act shall be interpreted broadly to enable its municipalities to govern its affairs as it considers appropriate and to enhance its ability to respond to local issues. Given this, it is my opinion that the prevention of poverty and homelessness is both a local issue and within the municipal mandate. Indeed, our colleagues from the City of Cornwall must have come to a similar conclusion as they provided funding for these two requests. All that being said, to me, this is not a question of mandate, but whether the prevention of homelessness is a priority for the members of this council. As such, I'm requesting that we support these requests. I will also note, as per the report provided, that this is in line with our strategic plan as it relates to creating relationships with our community partners to best offer services. Additionally, as previously noted, it is my opinion that the best dollars with respect to homelessness and the prevention of poverty is with respect to the prevention thereof. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
I think and thank you through you, Mr. Warden, had some conversations with Councillor Gaindo, and we don't see things eye to eye, but I appreciate the eloquent statement, and you did answer a question about the mandate, so that's one that we had. I will still, from the financial perspective, and I think of one of our late councillors, Bill McKenzie, he said there are good ideas, and sometimes you have to say no to them, and I appreciate that that's not probably popular amongst everyone, but we did take on debt as a corporation. We decreased reserves by $170,000 to something that we had always funded. So perhaps to me, on that side is we have our house that we're not taking care of, and we are growing our house, which is perfectly fine, and that's an opinion of council. And I suppose when you look at that United Way one specifically, that is free money. Social Services Relief Fund was funding it for some time, which is great, and we have to be wary, and that's something that I have to think of is when we receive free money, oftentimes it goes away, and sometimes it brings a good service, and this is certainly a good service. I'm not saying it's not, because you presented that very eloquently. It's just our house is not being taken care of in the way that I would like to see it financially. That's my opinion. However, it's your points stand very well, and I appreciate that you took some time and found the mandate. So thank you, and
Okay,
that's
you,
it. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Well, Councillor Gaindo, you certainly did your homework. That was impressive. I just have a question, Maureen, about the Social Services Relief Fund. Was that purely a pandemic funding opportunity?
So the Social Services Relief Fund did come out to municipalities during that pandemic period, and it was really meant to provide supports to communities from a social services perspective based on trending needs and things that were going on. So it was very much used for different components, food baskets, helping people with proper housing or shelter, I would say. So what the City of Cornwall did in the previous year is there was funds available within the Social Services Relief Fund that hadn't yet been allocated, and through the service manager through City of Cornwall, they felt that that was a very good program based on the direction of the province and what those funds could be used for. And so that was the funding that was provided in 2023. And so there's no more funding within that fund. I think that as well, if I could maybe just speak on behalf of the Warden's Caucus, I think we're recognizing that benefits that are paid for certain clients for ODSP and OW are not meeting the needs for basic shelter and food. So the OW rates have not changed since 2018. And so I think part of, I think there is a fairly significant need, but part of what happened through that Social Services Relief Fund, it was utilized to help mitigate some of these other areas that maybe were not providing the support mechanisms to those people in our community that needed them at the time.
Thank you, if I may, Mr. Warden.
Yep, subsequent.
That's very helpful, Maureen, thank you. I am sitting on the Regional Emergency Response Council. During the pandemic, I saw firsthand the important work of various agencies in order to support exactly what Maureen just pointed out, which is that there, if you're anyone who's on Ontario Works or ODSP, there is virtually zero chance that you can pay your rent, pay your bills, and put food on the table. And so what this emergency relief fund did was it allowed people who were about to be evicted from their homes the opportunity to get that hand up to allow them to stay so they didn't become homeless, allowed them to not have their water cut off or their electricity bill paid because they were about to, they were about to be cut off. So there is, I think, a very real need out there still. The problem is that the need is so much greater than any municipality could ever shoulder. And my concern is that these pressures are going to remain and potentially get worse, and the province is not stepping up. And the province needs to step up because municipalities just do not have the resources to be able to solve these problems on their own. So my feeling is that we need to support this fund this year because otherwise the vulnerable in our community are going to suffer even more than they're suffering already. But at the same time, we need to establish a very aggressive advocacy plan in order to get to the province on this issue. And we need to be united. We need Cornwall on side. We need probably every municipality across Ontario on side in order to be able to make an impact on this. So I don't think we should be, this fund, the demand for these dollars is just going to grow, and we need to find other options. So I'm prepared to support it this year as long as we get out there and do our job to make sure the province is doing their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you, and actually Councillor Williams at the tail end was kind of reiterating the point I wanted to make, which is, again, the municipality can't keep up with all of the need that's there. I think, from my perspective, if we don't use some of this funding and actually ask that the United Way and others make a part of their programming actually identifying where the gaps in the funding are, then we're kind of not fixing the machine. We're kind of putting Band-Aids on year after year, and I don't think that's sustainable. I think no matter how many people were helped last year, I suspect there are probably twice as many people who need the help. So it becomes almost a bottomless pit. And from my perspective, like I say, I'm okay to support it again this year, but we are starting to set a precedent. And in my opinion, I think it won't be a sustainable precedent for the counties to be able to support. So I'm okay to support it again this year, but there has to be a real focus on identifying what's the root issue, what are the root causes, and as Councillor Williams said, advocating to fix what's broken. Because clearly there's something missing here and people are suffering. So.
Thank you, Councillor. And I agree with everything that's been spoken. I think I will support this for this year, but we can't go away from today to Councillor Williams' point and forget about the advocacy. We need to start this week getting things together, get things in motion. Let's be ready for AMO. Let's get the City of Cornwall on board. Let's get both organizations on board. And again, we'll work with the Warden's Caucus, but oftentimes we pass something and then all of a sudden next November, we remember we didn't do anything about it. And we can't do that anymore. The province is going to continue to download to us. And if you see the change in percentage on what the province covers compared to what municipality covered over the last 20 years, it's astonishing how much we've taken on in debt, and it can't happen anymore. We need to really advocate for this. So again, I'm on board with supporting it this year, but there needs to be a real campaign moving forward. Councillor Fraser, and then Councillor Bergeron.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, I listened to the comments and the heartfelt comments that we need to be advocating for. And I think we're advocating for 138, we're advocating for infrastructure, we're advocating for homes at the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, 7,000 homes. The province is advocating for 1.5 million homes. So it is hard for me to say, but we're advocating at our lower tiers, at least in North Dundas, and we're looking at our first draft of our budget was a 14.1% increase. At the lower tier, we're struggling for reductions, and we're making cuts to things that are important to our community. It's not as dire, but still those social cuts we're making, the cuts we're making to the quality of excuse me, the quality of life in North Dundas are important to our taxpayers. And it is a hard argument to support that we need to make cuts to social services, but we're making hard decisions about keeping roofs on buildings and making sure the quality of the roads that our tax base use to commute, use to make money, our industry. We're making demands of our taxpayers to pay for roads that the province doesn't support. We're making demands, many demands, of our taxpayers at the lower level for things the province doesn't support and has decided not to support. And I think advocacy is great. I do know we need to advocate for things, but I think of the great project we have with the MCERT, is that the correct term, Mr. Warden? The Mobile Crisis Response Team. And we're supporting it at $120,000 a year. We all know that's an important tool that we do, an important task that we've taken on, our tax base has taken on, with great hopes that the province would see the benefit of that. The province doesn't see the benefit of that. They're quite happy, in my mind, that we pay for that service. Not other operators, not all operators have that type of service. We do, and the province, I think, is quite happy that we do, and they don't have to do. So I trust in the passion and compassion of supporting this project, but I think that's going to be seen as a project we're going to carry forward, and I don't see the province saying, you know what, you guys are right, and to support that, and we'll take it over. They're going to say, you guys are doing a good job, and just like the MCERT program. It's going to continue to be a project that we support. So this thought that we're going to cover it for one more year and then have success, I doubt highly. If we cover it for one more year, I think we just make it a line item and be done with it, and just understand that we need to continue supporting that. Because once we start supporting that, it'll continue. It's not going to stop. I can't see the province and the way they run their show as allowing this to stop. I suffer say I'm not supportive, but I understand the general feeling of support, but I think we're wrong to think that advocacy is going to convince the province that those in need the support. They have ignored those pleas for years, and I'm sure they're going to continue ignoring those pleas. So if we continue down this path, I think it's going to be something that we just make sure we continue down this path. Like we continue with the MCERT. We know we need to do that, and we do that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Bergeron.
Thank you, Warden. I do agree with Mr. Fraser that this will become a line every year. I have two questions. Do these services cover the influx of refugees that we've had, one? And two, do they cover Akwesasne, and has Akwesasne made any funds available for this program?
MCO.
Through you, Mr. Warden, I don't know about residents of Akwesasne. I don't think so. So the funding that we're providing for SDG will be specific for residents that live within SDG.
Okay.
Similar with the City of Cornwall funding. So it's based on the address of the recipient of the benefit.
And as for the influx of refugees, is this program being used for them?
So I think it kind of comes back again to where the individual lives. So if I don't know, like if a refugee set up permanent status or resided in SDG, and they met the criteria for the benefit, then perhaps. But I think it's really geared towards those that are current residents within both of our communities.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, and to the point of Mr. Fraser, is that it's not just the province who should be funding these issues, it's also the federal government, because the federal government, I'm okay with the immigration policies that they've had, except that SDG, we've been burdened with a lot of immigrants coming in, refugees, and which we need. We need population, we need a workforce. It'll take a while for these people to be incorporated and become a working people in our community. But the federal government is at fault for allowing a huge influx of immigration without having housing set up, without having infrastructure and services in place for us to handle all these people. And it's come down to the municipalities. We're the ones stuck now with all these issues, which should have been dealt with at the higher up, at the other echelons, provincial and federal.
Thank you. Councilor McGillis.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of the things I've heard this morning. I think maybe, as you mentioned, even getting the Eastern Ontario Warden Caucus on board with this, I think it's a big plus. This is affecting all municipalities across the province, and I think maybe we should be the leader in maybe asking the rest of this council if we'd get a motion in place and circulate it throughout 444 municipalities today. As you said, Councillor Williams, let's not wait. Why don't we circulate a motion today asking all 444 municipalities to support us with this advocacy? This is something that we should not have to shoulder. We have went outside our mandate many, many years. I've seen over the years as a county councillor that we support it because the province isn't stepping up to the plate, and the federal government too as well, as Councillor Bergeron mentioned. But I think today would be a good day to start with a motion and moving it forward to the rest of the municipalities of Ontario so that we can start this, and we can, as you said, let's work today, let's get this going this week. So what I think is that this is the thing to do at this time, and then we can work on it as we go.
Thank you, Councilor McGillis, and I think personally, and we can do whatever the council wants, I'd like to put some thought into a motion that we'd be sending to 444 municipalities so that we have the right wording in there, and but I think that's something that we could definitely do. Councillor Gato.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, this will be my final comment on this. I think this comes down to fundamentally what you believe government's purpose is, and to me, one of the principal purposes of government is to support its most vulnerable residents. I understand the concerns that we all have with respect to roads and critical infrastructure and our ability to protect that, but if we can't protect the people in our community, it seems like it's a moot point to me. We have to start at the base, which is the people in the community itself. And this is going right, this funding goes right to the most vulnerable sector of people in our community. So I really do think this is something that we ought to support at least for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, Councillor Broad.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. I'd like to support Councillor Gato and the request. Obviously, we're going to be moving the money from reserve since we've already passed our budget. But I want to have a plan. I want to be part of helping have a plan. So I'm volunteering myself to be on a committee, be on a team, be on whatever we need to do to move forward with advocacy, with a team, with the right resolution, with a motion.
Excellent. Great. Anybody that hasn't spoken? Okay, just by a quick show of hands, are we in favor of supporting this? Okay, so we have a resolution.
Through you, Mr. Warden, we do have a draft resolution that will require a mover and a seconder. It reads that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry approve the funding request from the United Way for the Last Resort Fund for $112,000, and that this amount be funded from the SDG Counties Working Reserve.
Councillor Gaydon will move it. Councillor Williams will second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. One opposed. Moving on to Social Development Council request for funding. Is there any further comments on this one that you would like to speak to? It seems that we're grouping these two together. Councillor McDonald, would you like to speak to this? No, you've made your, okay. Anybody else like to speak to this one? We have a motion.
It reads that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry approve the funding request from the Social Development Council for $66,979, and that this amount be funded from the SDG Counties Working Reserve.
Questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Oh, moved by Councillor Gaydon, seconded by Councillor McGillis. Question, Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'm prepared to support this as well. I would just like to see, moving forward, the Social Development Council work with the counties and the City of Cornwall to develop a sort of more of a fee-for-service model relating to this funding, rather than just blanket funding. Because I think there's an opportunity here to be able to ensure that what these municipalities are funding, that the work that's being done on behalf of the Social Development Council, that it actually falls within the mandate of the municipalities, and that can be done much more effectively and efficiently with a fee-for-service model or something to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? There are two opposed. Motion is carried. Moving on to Planning Department. Request to initiate an official plan amendment, major open space. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Fraser, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry direct staff to initiate an official plan amendment to permit the major open space designation outside of urban settlement areas.
Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, and good morning, Warden and Council. I'd like to introduce our new senior planner in the Environment and Policy position, Lindsay Parisian. Lindsay, as experienced planner, has a master's in economic development and diploma in environmental assessment, and she's also a resident of South Glengarry. So Lindsay will give a short summary of the two reports.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning, everybody. So the first report is seeking council direction to initiate an official plan amendment to permit the major open space designation outside the urban settlement areas, as it currently is not permitted in any other land use designation. So the intent behind this OPA is to provide further protection of municipally owned lands that are designated as rural settlement areas, rural district, or agricultural resource lands. This initiative also supports the implementation of the Natural Heritage Study by creating a more formal protection of these lands, which may not be recognized through current county official plan policies or zone categories at the municipal level. So therefore, if council were to direct staff to proceed with the official plan amendment, staff would continue working with the local municipalities and conservation authorities to ensure that the policies and the corresponding GIS mapping layers are reflective of this amendment, and council would receive updates as necessary. This report has been circulated to the local municipalities as well as the conservation authorities, and we are recommending that the council approve this recommendation. If approved, next steps would be to follow up with the local municipalities and proceed with scheduling a public meeting.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay, and I promise none of us will hold it against you that you live in South Glengarry, but any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Gano.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. Quick question. I was just wondering if a private landowner were to change will have the land designation change, what sort of impact it would have on assessment value or property tax payable?
Yeah, it's mostly based on the use. Lindsay, go ahead.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Warden, so my understanding in terms of the tax base and how properties are assessed through MPAC is all based on land use. So my understanding is that I don't necessarily think that it would have an impact on tax assessment. However, it all depends on the property itself and how the property is being used and what that entails.
Thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm.
Further questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Bergeron.
Thank you, Warden. I just want to be clear, is this for only municipally owned lands, or does this apply to private lands? Like, let's say I owned a piece of land personally, and all of a sudden the township says, no, we're going to designate this green. I would like to know the answer to this question.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Warden, so our intent at this time is to only focus on municipally owned lands, as well as public lands that are currently owned by the conservation authorities as well. Not to say that we would disregard any private-owned lands, however, that those types of land use designation changes would come to us through the private owner themselves. So at this time, the focus is on municipally owned lands. However, if that were the case of a private landowner, absolutely we'd be more than willing to work with them.
Thank you. Councillor St. Pierre.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Warden. I got to admit, when I read this report, I was a little bit nervous, and the reason why I was a little bit nervous is because I do believe in recreation, I do believe in walking paths, I do believe in preserving these open spaces, but as some may know, I'm very pro-development, and I get a little bit nervous if this is going to stymie potential development in the future. So could you kind of lay out for us and how this would actually impact future development? Does this just stop everything, or is there going to be a process afterwards in which, if it does apply to privately owned lands, how a private owner can then proceed with any required applications to develop their parcels of land?
Through you, Mr. Warden, so in my opinion, I don't think it's going to prevent development from occurring. What I do think, what the whole intent behind this is to add an extra layer of protection for municipally owned land specifically, just to at least have the policies in place for us to at least trigger, another official plan amendment. If it were designated as major open space areas, land use designation, then perhaps it would go through that planning process to be reviewed and to ensure that it's in line with not only our county official plan, but also the provincial policy statements as well. So I don't know if that fully answers your question. I don't know, Peter, if you had anything else to add to that as well.
Through the Warden, just to add to what Ms. Parisian said, the intent would only to be voluntary lands, so usually lands that be forested that are not planned to be developed anytime soon, so it wouldn't be prime development properties that the municipality or any private landowner would want to take place. Some municipalities may not even own these types of properties. They may have already divested them or transferred them to a conservation authority, but there are some large municipally owned parcels that municipalities may want to have that extra protection in the future. Ultimately, we can't bind the future councils. A future council could say, well, we changed our mind now, we want to go through the official plan amendment process, but this would add some consultation at least to doing that it couldn't just be at a meeting and then it's the property is no longer protected. So it would only be voluntary for municipalities or conservation authorities, and for private landowners would be voluntary as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ms. McDonald, then Councillor McDonald.
I don't know if we're both allowed to speak on the same issue, given that we're one over our limit, but I wanted to commend the staff for bringing this forward as a very proactive step. I think it does exist in other areas. It's very commonly use the open space designation, but historically in SDG, it's not something that has been used outside of urban areas. So I think it's very proactive of the staff to identify that this is sort of something that was missing. There's a little bit of context around Conservation Authority lands. The province recently required all CAs to identify all of their lands that were subject potentially for development. And I think that's really relevant in a lot of larger urban centers, but can be somewhat scary and damaging for our area, for the rural area. In many cases, some of these lands are donated, for example, by landowners who leave them as a legacy, both for their family, but also for their communities and for their families, and for our families. So I think being able to add this protection is really important in some of the political context that's going on provincially. And I also think the National Heritage System is a great example of how we've identified areas for recreation, for conservation, and that allows us to focus our development and our need for more housing in the right areas too. So this policy that they're proposing, I think, supports all of those goals, both development and conservation and recreation. Municipalities hold land, sometimes through tax sale, I think, as you all know. We don't always look at our inventories of land in our local municipality. I think it's a great opportunity to look. We may find land that would be great for development that we want to try to sell, and that's something that's actually happening in North Stormont tonight. We're looking at lands that we want to do multi-unit residential development, et cetera. But we also should look at these lands that should be protected and not just sold off for someone else to hold on to and perhaps not use in the way we might wish. So just supporting the staff and saying that I do think it's a very proactive thing for the county, and it wouldn't, in my opinion, have any negative impact on housing or development.
Thank you, Councillor. You're good? The other Councillor McDonald spoke for you. Councillor McDonald? Okay, any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Moving on to request to initiate an official plan amendment consent policies. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Bergeron, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry direct staff to initiate an official plan amendment to update the consent application policies and review criteria for rural severances.
Thank you. Lindsay.
So through you, Mr. Warden. So this report, as mentioned, is seeking council direction to initiate a separate official plan amendment to update the severance policies and review criteria of rural severances. Currently, the county official plan contains policies as well as a series of land division review criteria for staff to consider when reviewing these types of applications. So for example, some townships are only permitted to have 2 severances for a lot that existed in 1980. So therefore, a potential amendment would be to reset the current dates in which the 2 lots can be created to ensure that we accommodate the growth that is happening in SDG. Therefore, if council were to direct staff, we would continue to update our policies and proceed with the official plan amendment, and as well as continue to consult with local municipalities to ensure that the review criteria is updated as per our local needs.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Warden. As a potential landowner or a buyer someday, I'd like the idea of more supply, but I am curious as to, I guess it's to initiate, so do include transportation, because my question would be ribbon development, and I guess Schlottenberg Township, probably South Glengarry for some time here, has that, and I worry for ribbon development, because in Schlottenberg Township, we formerly did that quite a bit, and I wonder how that would affect, the levels of service in some of our country lanes, as well as, like, say, County Road 2, because if you drive County Road 2 in other municipalities, it's mostly public. In South Glengarry, it is, it's very private, and that's our assessment base, so just keep that keen when you're going through it, but I like the initiation of this idea.
Go ahead. Question? No. Go ahead. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. As to the previous action request and to this one, whenever you speak of 1980, it's about time we had some consideration about the growth and the needs, and I think at our in North Dundas, and I'm sure many other councillors think this way in their own municipality. How come and why is it this way, and how do we get this to work, and how do we get growth, and how do we get change, and how do we respond to the demands of people that want to move in? And then to hear 1980, it's quite a stark reminder that this is an important thing, and I'm sure it'd be well supported. I just want to thank the planning staff for thinking ahead and responding to some of the thoughts that might have been unspoken at our end. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Thank you. And moving on to bylaws, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Broad, that bylaw number 5434, being a bylaw to establish property tax ratios for the county and municipal purposes for the year 2024, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. Welcome, Rebecca.
Okay, so for the next two bylaws, actually, one establishes the tax ratios and the other for the tax rates. So the first bylaw is to establish the tax ratios, which remain unchanged for many years, actually. These ratios distribute the tax burden between the property classes. Residential class is always equal to 1. So these ratios have no financial impact on local municipalities, but they are required to set the tax rates.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion is carried, none opposed. And 8.2, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that bylaw number 5435, being a bylaw for the purpose of adopting and raising the general upper tier levy for the year 2024, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Okay, so the tax rate bylaw establishes the tax rates for 2024, which results in tax revenue of just over $58 million based on the 2024 budget meetings that we've had in the deliberations. Property taxes will see an increase of 4.36% in the residential county tax rate, which is an increase overall of just over $3 million from 2023. So once approved, this bylaw will be shared with local municipalities as it's required to be included with their property tax billing. This bylaw also approves the 2024 budget.
Excellent. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. Hopefully just a typo, but in point 1A of the actual bylaw, it looks like it's out by $1 million.
Sorry? Which
Point
bylaw?
1A, now therefore, and then on point 1A, in the bylaw itself, 5435, it's 59,159,510, and I think it should be 58 million.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness, you're right. It should be 50. It should be 58 million five.
It's just
Yeah.
the 9 should be an 8, I think.
Good job, Councillor Lang.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good eye. Kim, is that something you can amend?
Councillor McDonald, with all your background, that you didn't catch that, but were you going to try a comeback? Okay, any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. 8.3, reappointment of Integrity Commissioner. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Densham, that bylaw number 5436, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an amending agreement for the provision of Integrity Commissioner services, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk.
Sure, just through you, Mr. Warden, a quick update. Our current agreement with our Integrity Commissioner here at the county expires at the end of this month. It's been in place for the past 5 years. As Council is aware, through the Municipal Act, all municipalities across the province are required to have an appointed Integrity Commissioner in place. So we are recommending that Council renew Mr. Fleming's agreement for a further 5 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Encroachment agreement at 4405 County Road 1, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Densham, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that bylaw number 5437, being a bylaw for the purpose of establishing an encroachment agreement between the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry and Jack and Faye Fawcett at 4405 County Road 1, South Dundas, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you, and welcome, Derek.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Through you, Mr. Warden, this is just a quick encroachment agreement for road widening that was created through a severance as part of the survey, and they They noted that the front step actually extended through the property line, although not very much, only talking about 10 inches more or less. It still required an encroachment agreement, so it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Removal of 0.3 meter reserves, County Road 13. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Bergeron, that bylaw number 5438, being a bylaw for the purpose of establishing land as part of the highway, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. Derek.
Again, through you, Mr. Warden, this here is just kind of a follow-up from our resolution from last meeting. This is for an entrance application in County Road 13 west of Chrysler. In order to get the entrance in, we have to remove the 1-foot reserve.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. The 1-foot reserve, is that going to be an extra road widening? Is the road, are we taking that into the road, or is it going back to the property owner, or where did it start out with? Just looking at, it's hard to see on the diagram, but it almost looks like we're going to be a foot wider there than anywhere else along the road. I just wonder if we're taking an extra road widening.
Yeah, we'll absorb that into the road allowance to allow the frontage to be able to connect to it.
Is it going to be wider, 1 foot wider there than anywhere else?
I believe so.
I'm just not sure why we're wanting it a little bit more wider. Like, because I just noticed it looked like the property was going to be turned over to us, and just why are we wanting that extra foot over the rest of the roadway if we're already at the width we wanted?
Yeah, I believe that kind of resulted when they put the 1-foot reserve in, when 1-foot reserve was held in our ownership. So all we're doing is removing that reserve to allow it to go back to the property owner.
Yeah, I would have thought it went back to the property, but it's 1 foot. I'm not worrying either way. But
any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Thanks, Derek. Official plan amendment number 22-6059, Fourth Line Road. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Densham, seconded by Councillor Broad, that bylaw number 5439, being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 22 to the official plan of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. Peter.
Thank you, Warden. And this is for an official plan amendment for a transportation depot parking for a property on the 401. It's in the ag zone, so it's going to a special designation. It's been supported by the municipality, and we're recommending approval.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Councillor Lang.
thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Yeah, South Glengarry is in favor of this. It's, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's right off the 401. And it wasn't, there was a gentleman that made some comments, and he wrote in as well as phoned some of us and made some comments, not against the development, in favor of it actually, I think, but the comments weren't reflected in here. But just a heads up for you guys, and I don't know if it would go to your department or if it maybe go more to transportation. Most of his comments were related around the fact the county road at the Curry Hill Exchange may need to be looked at in the future, and maybe not right away, but as it develops there, and especially if the Husky truck stop comes back, it's maybe needs a little widening or a little bit of a turning lane or something. Now, that's what they were concerned about, was just with the amount of trucks that are going to be at that interchange with the, the service centers and this, and we also have on the other side of the road, there's I guess a distribution center, a refrigerated distribution center being built at the moment. So that was just the comment, just a heads up for maybe the transportation department or yourselves, that whether we need to look at some point in the future widening that out or putting some turning lanes so that traffic isn't too congested there.
And through the warden, you can see in the site plan, kind of at the end of the page, there is a proposed MTO right away, and we've been working through, and it's going to be more at the site plan stage probably, with the township and MTO. Eventually there's a whole plan to realign all the ramps and even look at some of the bridges in this area. So as we're getting towards the site plan stage, we're going to continue to work with the municipality on that, and definitely I think in 10, 20 years, hopefully sooner, this area would look completely different from that.
Good. Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just a little bit of a follow-up on that. We did have a minister's meeting in relation to that potential off-ramp change and so forth, and they're looking at possibly eliminating one of the bridges and changing the actual number 2 highway and taking it. But there is some things that in their potential plan that really make no sense at all. So you know, it would be nice if we started working on that before they get too far along and kind of get those things rearranged. Like they're looking at dead-ending the number 2 where it makes no sense against the Quebec border. There's no road on the other side there, then have to crop back across the bridge. So some of that should be addressed sooner than later, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Was this project originally an illegal land use issue, this one?
Yes.
It was, eh? I mean, I can see that makes a great deal of sense, the entire project for sure. But I'm just curious about how they took agricultural land and put it into a parking lot. Is that correct?
Yes, in the official plan it's agricultural, but the zoning actually was highway commercial. So
okay.
it wasn't entirely like just zoned agriculture. They were able to build some things on that property, just not the transportation.
Okay, purely out of curiosity, is there any way to control that kind of thing to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future?
I think the township's been working on working with the individual landowners, and they've been looking to. They did put in their applications, and they've been looking to move the process forward. There are other things like site alteration bylaws that some municipalities use in southern Ontario, where the properties get graded and kind of changed quite a bit before any actual development. So that's always an option. But I think in this case, there's a positive outcome in terms of the landowner putting in the application and going through the process now. And then there's some things around, there's municipal drain and kind of creek in the back, and some fill that's already been on the property that they're still working on resolving. But so far it's been positive from what I've heard speaking with the municipality.
I think, Councillor Williams, you look under the section where it says they paved Paradise and put up a parking lot. It's right there. Councillor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yeah, I kind of picked up on what Councillor Williams was saying as well, which is it felt almost as if the work began before it was allowed to begin, and so I agree with the sentiment. In this case, maybe again they've been working with the municipality, which is fine, but I'm thinking more in a general sense. We need to be sure that that's not occurring, and that there are ways to address it quickly, because again. Don't want people kind of playing the go ahead forward and then apologize afterwards, right? So, yeah, ask for forgiveness.
Councillor Bergeron.
Thank you, Warden. I'd like to know who is going to be paying for the upgrades of the road that's going to be required for this private enterprise.
There are certain parts through site plan control, such as road widening or certain upgrades that might be allowed to done as a site plan control condition. I think the challenge in this case is a lot of the improvements are planned are more broader ones by MTO and the counties, and I don't know at this point if there's been talk about the cost. So if there's something that's in a plan, or like a road widening or like an intersection upgrade as a result of a traffic study, that's something that through the site plan control the developer can be required to pay for. But some of those broader upgrades that Councillor Lang was referring to might be through either provincial or, I'm not sure, any county funds as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? See none. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. None opposed. Moving on to items under the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Gaydon, that all items listed under the consent agenda section of the agenda be received for information purposes.
Are there any questions or comments under any of these items? All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried, none opposed. Moving on to boards and committee, joint liaison. I believe we have an upcoming meeting. And library board. Would like to speak to that. Councillor Broad.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. We had a library meeting January 18th in the beautiful downtown Lancaster. It was a great night. Just some updates on the Morewood Express Depot, which is going extremely well for just being launched. We reviewed our reports, which you'll see in the data. You see where subscriptions and activity is up in a lot of our branches, which is great. And we set our meeting dates for 2024, and we shared our communications and marketing plan at that meeting. So lots of exciting things to see in 2024, and I'll let Rebecca Luck and the team at the library board do all the announcements of all the plans for 2024.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Broad. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And to piggyback onto Councillor Broad's enthusiastic comments about the library board, I do share them. And I do want to bring to all my fellow councillors' attention, if they would go to the SDG library website, which is quite an informative website, it is quite an improvement. And kudos to staff and Cassie that had prepared that. You will find at that website upcoming events, and I think it's of maybe of interest to many of us to follow that, and you could decide which site, which library branch you want to have brought to your attention, and find out what's going on in your local area, at your local branches, and maybe drop in at an event that's going on. It's quite an informative website, it's easy to use, and it's a great tool for all of us to have at our hands. And again, I thank the staff for their efforts to make sure that information is available to all of us. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions or comments on libraries? Great, thank you. Police Services Board, I'll ask the Chair, Councillor McGillis.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. This is the quarterly meeting we had, was from October to December of 23. The OPP continue, this is his message, our commander, dispatch commander, Mark Hemrick, that they continue to see increased levels of calls of service that they've seen pre-pandemic. They continue to recover many of the stolen vehicles, the occurrences that happened between that time on the 401 and other urban areas. They seem to have a lot more stolen vehicles, especially in the GTA area, over 600 vehicles within a short amount of time. It's just crazy the amount of vehicles that are being stolen. But we're lucky around this area. It's not happening as frequent. Also, he reported sexual occurrences continue to trend upwards across the province as well. There's 1,570 hours in the number of cruiser patrol hours. There was 72.5 foot patrol hours, and there was 22.5 school patrol hours as well. So the SDG OPP auxiliary still stands at 9 uniformed volunteer members serving all of SDG. And if anyone would like a copy of our report that we received at the quarterly meeting, I'm sure Kimberly would be happy to forward it to you. There's a lot of other information in there, but it's a lot of the stuff that they talk about increased and decreased convictions. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor. Glen Dordogne Lodge. Councillor Broad.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. We had a meeting on Wednesday, January 17th, 3 topics of concern. We continue to have ministry inspections and small orders to be completed, which our staff and administration are working against. Occupancy rates are strong, but during outbreak times, we can't move into residents, so that's the fluctuations we see. But more importantly, and it was discussed a little bit earlier on recruiting, still becomes a problem. We've been managing to recruit some, but it's certainly a struggle for us to recruit nurses and practitioners and PSWs overall. There's lots of programs in place for funding and training and et cetera, but still looking for help in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Lang.
Just a note, you jumped over the health unit one.
Yeah, I did it for a reason, so, but no, I'm kidding.
And we actually had 2 meetings since the last.
That's
just
why.
because council was a little early last.
Time restraints here, but go ahead, Councillor Lang. My apologies.
I'll do a little bit on January 18th meeting, and then hopefully my Karma can look after the next one. Not too much on that. The conversation on COVID is dropping off a lot, thank goodness. It's still around, but it seemed to have peaked and was dropping. and nobody seems as concerned about it. Fentanyl overdoses were up. He'd mentioned, this is the January 18th meeting. We need a proposal by April for any mergers that are about to happen, so hopefully Karma has an update. I was away last week, so it wasn't at the one we had last week. Looking at a health hub in Alexandria. I don't know if there's anything new on that, but it sounded exciting.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So COVID does continue to trend downwards. RSV and the flu are also flattening, but it's the common cold that is up, apparently. Strep A is still an ongoing concern. There have been a few deaths with that, so they're warning people to keep an eye out and seek help if there's a concern there. The Eastern Ontario Health Unit is focusing on returning to regular programming, particularly mental health and addiction, as mentioned by Councillor Lang. Oh, I was going to say Martin. Councillor Martin. In an effort to address the increasing overdoses, and they're actually considering a mobile unit. They're also focusing on immunization for children because during the pandemic, literally all immunizations stopped, and so they've got a significant amount of catch-up to do. Mergers of the health units, some are going forward. They're still considered voluntary and only being encouraged if they make sense. So the Eastern Ontario Health Unit has hired a consultant to look at the possibility of a merger with Renfrew County possibly, and I'm thinking possibly Leeds as well. But we're not certain of, like, the region has to make sense. You know, it can't be all sort of separated and parceled off. So the consultant's looking at that at the moment. And the health unit is sending a letter to the Premier to address food insecurity and homelessness.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions or comments? Thank you for your report. St. Lawrence River Institute, Councillor Gano.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. The nominations committee is currently recruiting 2 new board members due to vacancies that are upcoming due to term limits. Applications should be reviewed in March and then recommendations made to the entire board for their AGM in May. Other than that, nothing to report as the board does not meet between December and May each year.
Okay, thank you. Raisin South Nation Water Protection Committee, Councillor Bergeron.
Yes, I finally have something to report. I'll be intimidated with Allison being here, though. Okay. One very short item for all of us to know is that battery storage facilities are not listed as a threat for source protection. I thought that would be important for battery facilities that want to be installed in our municipalities. But mainly, the topics was about snow storage and salt. Snow, of course, contains salt because it's been cleaned up during the wintertime with salt. And snow and salt being put down so that people don't slip and fall in on our roads. Snow from industrial and commercial sites can only be hauled now to prescribed snow dumps that are not a threat in protection zones. They've even qualified how big a snow pile could be depending how serious a threat it is, but it marked it in square meters, which made no sense to me because you can have a pile that's 2,000 square meters, but it could be 10 feet high, it could be 5 feet high. And also, which I sent Allison an email last week, but it was a holiday weekend, they don't clarify if it's a total of 2,000 square feet on a property lot or if it's a single 2,000-foot pile. So if someone has a 2,000-foot pile and says, oh, this isn't going to work under the rules, I'm going to make 2 1,000-square-foot piles, whether will happen. They've also defined salt as Exposed, partially exposed, and not exposed. So exposed means you have salt on the ground, obviously, but partially exposed includes outdoor bins. So if you have snow in a big plastic bin with a lid on, even if there's a lid on, they consider that as partially exposed. Salt boxes, tarps, and three-sided sheds. The only thing that they consider as not exposed is a building, a closed building where a truck actually drives into the building and is loaded within the building. That is the only thing that they consider as not exposed. So now there's going to be new rules with salt dumps and salt storage in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Municipal Advisory Algonquin Land Claim, Councillor Fraser.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Warden, but there's nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. It's business as usual at the Agri-Food Network. There's a big push on right now to grow the membership because that brings in revenue and brings the Agri-Food Network community together. The organization was very pleased to receive the funding from SDG. They also received the same $35,000 from Prescott Russell. Unfortunately, the City of Cornwall voted not to fund the Agri-Food Network, and this complicates matters in that the Agri-Food Network was really focusing on a regional model to really represent all of the small producers across the region. Now with Cornwall not participating financially in this arrangement, it remains to be seen exactly how Cornwall will be participating in the organization moving forward. They're still members of the board, and that is remaining status quo for now. But I think there's some work to be done in order to try to keep Cornwall in this participating in this organization so that they can represent small producers in their area. And hopefully, if we can really partner on this and get Cornwall back into the organization next year, I think it would be very desirable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I just want to be comfortable understanding, making sure I understand. They are not participating financially, but they will participate in making decisions as board members?
It remains to be seen. Everybody was busy sort of absorbing the new reality, and no, we're going to be discussing it at a subsequent board meeting. But I'm not sure what direction that's going to go. One thing for sure is Cornwall's an important partner at the table, and that's why what I mean when I say it's problematic if they're not financially supporting the organization and yet still going to participate. I don't know how that's going to work, but we need Cornwall as a partner at this table. But it will be discussed. I'll update after our next board meeting.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'd rather not pursue this politely. I'm not sure if I could do it, so I'll stop. Thank you.
Understood. Regional Incentives Program Approvals Committee, Councillor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. We haven't had a meeting yet. However, I will say that the intake closes February 29th. So any last-minute businesses who want to get in, you've got 9 days to do it, and best of luck to those who have applied. My expectation is that there will be a meeting shortly thereafter, but we haven't received a meeting date yet.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor. Rural Education Committee, Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warden. As most is known through the letter of thanks, we were successful in meeting with the Minister of Education at Roma It was, and we were attended by you. Thank you, Mr. Warden, for attending, and Maureen Adams and the rest of the committee members, or most of the committee members. We felt it went really well. It was a nice meet and greet. As the letter states, they are. The lifting of the moratorium is going to be as is for now, but they did suggest that when they do get to lifting of the moratorium, it's going to be kind of in a phased, tiered approach. We believe, or maybe should be saying we're hopeful, that they're actually recognizing rural schools are much different than larger urban centers. We've asked to be part of that process, or at least part of the planning process, to be able to give input on being able to keep our rural schools viable. So we're hopeful. We have a meeting this evening at 5 p.m. remote, so if you want to tap in and listen to some great conversation, we encourage that as well. So we're just going to continue with the data collection and continue as being ready and making our schools viable. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The minister also did say when we are doing that data collection that if we experience what we experienced in the past, getting that information, that the ministry would possibly step in and get that information for us. So it was, as Councillor St. Pierre said, it was a very good meeting. Social Development Council, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. You have all of the information in your package about the Social Development Council, so I'm not going to go into things any further. I know that they'll be very pleased to have received the funding. This will enable the Social Development Council to continue operating for this year, because if they hadn't been funded, their existence would have been in question. So thank you for that.
Thank you, everyone, for your reports. We will move on to key information reports. 11.1, increment bridge condition update. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Warden, and good morning, Council. What we have here apparently, or would seem to be a shift in priorities, but I want to assure you that the Increment Bridge still remains very much a priority. In the 2021 OSIMs, it was identified as being in relatively poor shape and something that needed to be planned for replacement. And to that end, we have ongoing programs, three items specifically, that are preparing for that replacement. And one of those is the ongoing monitoring of the bridge. It was studied for the structure type and what further degradation would look like. And twice annually we have bridge consultants going out there and inspecting the bridge and looking for further signs. And what they've found for the last, I believe it was 4 inspections, is that the bridge remains stable. It looks to be in poor shape, but it remains stable. However, we still have the ongoing programs preparing for the replacement. The girders are being fabricated at this time, and we have a plan in place for those girders for approximately the next year at no additional charge to the county. So we have an opportunity here to realize the value of something that we already have, which is the bridge superstructure in place carrying traffic, which appears to be stable. This gives us an opportunity to take the funding that we were putting towards this priority project and pivot to something else. We have another bridge not too far away that has, it's a different bridge type with a different type of degradation. And it would make sense to not rehabilitate this bridge in the same year that we would do a replacement on Increment, because if you look at the map and where your potential detour routes would be while Increment is being replaced, this bridge would be on that detour. So we are proposing that we pivot, and this bridge, Oak Valley Bridge, is a slightly smaller bridge. It's only a rehabilitation. It's not a replacement. So we certainly have the funds within the Increment Bridge budget. I would propose that we hold on to about $300,000 in the Increment Bridge budget for the programs that are in place to continue to monitor, prepare those girders, quality control on those girders, and our consultants' time. And that would leave 1.6 million left. And if we were to take the entirety of that 1.6 million over to the Oak Valley Bridge, we would have more than enough, I anticipate, to complete that rehabilitation. So what I'm looking for from council is, if I have swayed you, the direction to go ahead and make those changes. We would complete Oak Valley Bridge this year. This bridge has come to council before. We would be proposing to do it as a came to council before I issued the RFP for design, and I had requested council to give me the nod at the time to plan for a full closure. It's a very low traffic road, County Road 5. The bridge rehabilitation and the financials on that project would benefit from a full closure. There are a couple of adjacent farmers who would be impacted. We have done some initial consultations with them. I went out and spoke to the two nearest farmers on the south side of the road approximately 1 year ago, maybe 10 months ago, and gave them a heads up that this was something that we were interested in pursuing. We would, if we were to proceed with the Oak Valley Bridge again this year, we would go back out again and make sure that we have consulted with them and made them aware of the full extent of the impacts that this project would have on them. Unfortunately, the nature of a phased bridge reconstruction is that they wouldn't be able to get their farm equipment across it anyway. With the concrete dividers and the width of the bridge, the impacts are there whether we close it or not, and because the road is low traffic, we stand to benefit immensely from asking everyone to divert, including our own county staff out of our Winchester Springs patrol garage. Our patrol supervisor at that garage has been made aware of our plans and has indicated that they can make do for the couple of months that we would have this bridge fully closed. So with that, I leave it to council. If you have any questions or require any further information, please let me know.
Councilor Bergeron.
Thank you, Warden. The 300,000 that you're saying to be used this year, is that like to maintain the bridge? I'm asking this question because it doesn't make sense for me to spend 300,000 to keep a bridge going for 1 year and then replace the bridge at the full cost. I mean, it makes more sense to replace it now and not spend that extra 300,000.
So the 300,000 isn't for maintenance on the bridge. Essentially, the 300,000 goes to cover what we haven't committed to the girder fabrication yet. So there's invoices that we haven't received for that effort. There's the final invoice from the design consultants that we haven't received yet to take the drawing package from 90 to 100% and issue it for tender. There would be the ongoing monitoring of the bridge. So these are all services that we would have paid for anyway, as part of taking the bridge to the beginning of construction. So we would have, and the 300,000 is much larger than the amount I anticipate. I had ballparked it in around 150, but I'm leaving a contingency just to ensure that there are no issues with carrying on with this project. The surplus would of course go to back into the Inkerman Bridge surplus. What we stand to gain roughly would be $40,000 in taking the cost of the Inkerman Bridge replacement and dividing it by the life of the bridge that we've had so far, just as a kind of shortcut to what we might have spent on the bridge over its life so far. And if we look at extending it by another year, it comes out to roughly $40,000 is what we're really getting out of this by gaining that 2% service life from the existing structure.
Did you all understand that? Is he saying it's going to cost $40,000 to, what, I don't quite understand. What is it going to cost us besides the fees for the girders? All that it has to be paid for anyways. So what extra cost would there be to us to keep that bridge going for another year? is my question.
Sorry, if I understand the question as if we ignore the girders, the design, and the inspections, what's the cost? The cost is zero. The structure is already there and in service.
Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, through you. And I'm going to follow on Councillor Bergeron. Like, you're going to have inspections done? It sounds like we have to have these inspections done. I'm not seeing the point of putting this off if we're going to be paying for inspections when we could replace the bridge. We have budgeted for the. Are we expecting that to replace it will be cheaper next year? Typically, the costs keep going up, so I'm assuming it's going to cost more next year, but maybe we'll get into a financial time where the contractors are more aggressive. I don't know. But I'm not seeing the advantage to paying for inspections for another year to put off what we plan to do this year. You haven't sold me yet anyway.
We've seen some costs come down on certain bridges, like the Martintown Bridge was 2.1 million last year and it was 1.4 this year. We've seen some costs come down and some aggressive bidding from contractors. Whether that will continue or hold until next year, I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. What I expect to see with the Inkerman Bridge is that the girders are a write-off regardless. When we look at when we say that bridges will cost more next year, it's the degradation of the elements we look to keep, and the cost of rehabilitating those elements if we let them get to a further stage of degradation. Whereas with Inkerman Bridge, they will be written off, and there are bridges where if we know an element is going to go and is going to be completely replaced, we enter into a holding strategy. We're doing that with Boundary Bridge, for example, on Boundary Road, County Road 19, where the bridge has been identified as a write-off, and we're squeezing out the last bit of life that we can out of it before we go into a full replacement. And so this here is what I'm proposing is a 1 year essentially holding pattern on that bridge, where if we get that 1 more year's worth of life out of the bridge, we're realizing about $40,000 in value before we include the inspections, which are a couple $1,000s for the year program. So maybe $38,000 is what we're gaining out of this. And if we were to stop doing that with bridges, where we kind of comes up on our radar and we just replace it right away, and we lose 3% of the value of every bridge, we just chuck it out because we don't want to wait until we're absolutely ready to. Overall, the cost of providing the service goes up. So the holding pattern is really our way of just trying to keep our costs down. With the Inkerman Bridge, we absolutely would replace it in 2025. There'd be no way to get around that once we start paying for the rental for space for the girders at the site where they built it. Realizing that that additional value is essentially canceled out. So we have an opportunity to wait 1 year, maybe gain $37,000, $38,000 in value, prioritize a different bridge. Otherwise, we do Inkerman this year, we do Oak Valley next year, and we have essentially, spent just a little bit more, or gotten a little bit less value for the dollars that we're spending.
Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So I think I see where you're coming from now. If we can extend the life, you think it's worth $40,000 to us. So I guess what we have to decide is the chance that the cost is going to be $40,000 higher next year, or $80,000 higher, or if it holds similar, we're going to come out maybe for $38,000, $40,000 ahead. If the cost goes up by more than that in a year, then we're going to be further behind. So I guess that's kind of what we're stuck with in my mind.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Excuse me. So to the questions being asked, I reflect back, Mr. Jantz, to some of the opportunity I've had to learn a bit about roads from public works people. If a road is done, a road is done. But if a road can be saved, there's value in saving a road. So I'm guessing this is the idea behind the Oak Valley Bridge. It'd be cheaper to to repair it and maintain it this season than it will be in a year's time. There'll be more of an expense in the repairs to keep that because it will deteriorate further with the infiltration or the impact of salt, and the bridge is done. But my question is it only $3,000 for the inspections, the biannual inspections? Is that the cost of the inspections? Because I don't want to quibble over $3,000, but whenever we bandy about $300,000 for the difference, because we're going to spend on girders and inspections and everything else, but I think you said or I infer from what you said that it's about $3,000 for the inspections.
I don't have the number in front of me, but it is in that order of $2,000 to $3,000 a year for the inspections.
Thank you. And that was my concern, is are we going to spend money on inspections for something that we know we're going to tear down anyway? But if it's that kind of money, then that it adds a level of safety. Because there's definitely, we're not going to shut down the Inkerman Bridge and the Oak Valley Bridge at the same time. We can't do that, so that's what I mean. I'm wondering about the inspections, but for that kind of money, it's better to have a better understanding of the quality of the bridge. But I am supportive of the repair to the Oak Valley Bridge. Get that out of the way while it's still repairable before it becomes a replacement, and then whenever it's 2025 comes, then the Inkerman Bridge would be looked after. That's my feeling on that. If you're looking for direction, that's my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you. Okay. Yep, Councilor McDonald.
Is the Inkerman Bridge the detour route for Oak Valley? Or if you know?
Yes, if you were to, for Oak Valley, one way or another around the bridge, one way would take you over the Inkerman Bridge.
Just wondering if you're closing Oak Valley, redirecting all the traffic to Inkerman, and Inkerman's getting rough, so you're putting more traffic over that bridge. You'll be doing the inspections, but I noted in the report, you just note there is risk. There is risk with that decision.
For all of your information, the traffic on County Road 5 over the Oak Valley Bridge is approximately 400 vehicles per day. It's one of our lowest trafficked roads, and what quantity of that is our own staff, I don't know, going to or from our own patrol garage.
I guess the fear would just be that you go out and for your July inspection and find out that the Inkerman Bridge needs to be done and is unsafe. But that's the risk, I guess, that we're evaluating.
I'll speak further to that. That is a risk. That is a very real risk. That the July inspection finds that the degradation has continued, and it's a change from what we've seen. At that point, we may be faced with the requirement that we would need to load post the bridge, and or that we would have to begin replacement immediately. So on the topic of load posting, obviously that is not something that we ever want to have on any of our bridges. In table 1 in my report, you'll see that I've carried the costs, some of the anticipated costs and some of the balances that we've seen on tenders so far to date, and where we would expect to fall on the total bridge program global budget. And we would still have, we're estimating at this point, $1.2 million for if I may say, the 1.6 that we took away from Inkerman. We have 1.2 of that still. It means that we would have to take the entirety of the Martintown surplus and put that back into Inkerman Bridge, and then we would be looking at where do we make up the $400,000 shortfall. I know if Ben were here, he'd be prepared, well, I believe he'd be prepared to argue that that is a time when financing would be worthwhile discussing, because we are talking about a new superstructure. It's a new piece of infrastructure, and we are only looking at financing it at the very start. I would love to avoid that if at all possible, and it is a $400,000 shortfall. I suppose another place that we could look perhaps is at the Director of Finance and whether we have 400,000 in a bridge reserve somewhere that we could tap into if that were the case. I don't know if that's something that we have access to at this time, but it would be an opportunity there, and yes, that is a real risk at this point in time without knowing what the future holds.
Yeah, is $38,000 worth having to do both those bridges this year? I don't know.
Okay. So we need some direction here in favor of what is being proposed. Hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have enough to move forward to what you're proposing. So we have a motion. Go ahead.
So I have a draft motion through you, Mr. Warden. It reads that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry approve that the Oak Valley Bridge Rehabilitation Project take place in 2024 and that the Anchorman Bridge project be reprioritized for 2025.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Moved by Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor Densham. All in favor? Motion opposed. 1, 2, 3 opposed. Motion is carried. Thank you. 2024 Spring Road Tour. Welcome, Derek.
Getting through, Mr. Warden, hopefully this is a little bit easier conversation to have than the last one. Every year we try to get the council together, go take a tour around the counties to see the great roads we have out there and to look at projects of the past, projects of the future, and address any questions or concerns you have. We're proposing to do it again this spring. We provide some dates there for consideration. Just kind of leave it to you to let me know which ones work best for everybody.
So you'll send out a doodle poll, or?
Yeah, we can do a doodle poll. Is there any dates in there that does not work for anybody?
Councillor Williams?
April 18th doesn't work for me.
Councillor Densham?
Yeah, me neither. Or May 1st, actually.
Councillor Lang?
18th doesn't work for me, and anything in May doesn't work for me.
Anything in May doesn't work for you?
No.
Well, that makes things easy. Councillor Fraser?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. No, I have lots of conflicts, but I look forward to the doodle poll, and then the majority will rule.
Sounds good. Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. The total eclipse of the heart. Here we go. Oh, do we need special glasses?
solar eclipse. That begins in the afternoon of April the 8th. So we've identified some concerns with respect to this event. It's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for really everyone who will see this event, but there is some things that we'd like to discuss this morning. Joining me is Catherine Beeler, the Emergency Management and Training Coordinator for the county, and I'm Todd, the Communications Coordinator. So, why do we have eclipses? It turns out the Earth is round, and there are different types of eclipses. For the purposes of today, Warden McDonald will focus on three. So there is a partial eclipse, and that happens when the sun is partially obscured by the moon. There is an annular eclipse, and that happens when the moon passes between the sun and the Earth while it's at its furthest point from the Earth. Because the moon is farther away from Earth, it appears smaller than the sun and does not completely cover the star. What we're going to experience is a total eclipse, and that happens when the moon completely covers the face of the sun, and to see it, you must be somewhere within a narrow path of totality. A total solar eclipse, they happen every 18 months or so, somewhere in the world. The total phase of the eclipse, where the moon completely covers the sun, is visible along a narrow path of totality. Typically, the path is around 15,000 kilometers long, but only about 150 kilometers wide. Are total solar eclipses dangerous to look at? Yes and no. It is harmful to look at directly at the sun without specialized eye protection for a solar eclipse. Viewing any part of the sun through a camera lens, binoculars, or a telescope without a special purpose solar filter will instantly cause severe eye injury. But you can use approved eclipse glasses or a handheld solar viewer during the partial eclipse phases before and after totality to safely look up. One can view the eclipse directly without proper eye protection, but that's only when the moon completely obscures the sun's bright face during what is known as we've discussed already, the path of totality or the period of totality. But as soon as even a little bit of the bright sun reappears after totality, immediately put your eclipse glasses back on or turn away. So on April the 8th at 3:24 and 50 seconds p.m., we will experience a once-in-a-lifetime event. And because our region lies within the path of totality that will sweep across North America, for about 2 minutes and 15 seconds, the sun will be completely masked by the moon. So you'll see that with these graphics, the eclipse, the path of totality begins in Mexico. It will move northeast across the United States, and we'll just clip a little bit of Canada. And I draw your attention to the graphic on the right. So you will note that most of the municipalities and communities along the St. Lawrence River and along the lakeshore will be included within this path of totality. But interestingly enough, Ottawa and the City of Toronto will not. They will still get a heck of a show. It will be amazing, but they won't get the full effect of the event that we will have here, which leads us to some of the concerns that we have. As I said, those communities are out, but SDG counties is in for the most part. We've included some headlines there that kind of explain what happened in 2017 when the total solar eclipse took place within the United States. And you can see there that some emergency management individuals and some municipal folks had issues with respect to individuals and tourists visiting their regions to view this event. There are approximately 1.1 million people that live north of SDG counties. And even if 5% of those individuals decide that day to make a trip south to view the event, that's 50,000 people that will show up in our backyard to view this spectacle. Why we're concerned, Warden McDonald, is this event obviously is free and easy to access. Social and traditional media will fuel attention. We're starting to see that now. At the beginning of the year, there wasn't a heck of a lot going on, but traditional media sources and social media have now begun to pick up on this, and we are starting to notice some more attention. People will, in fact, drive to this event. Even if there are just a few viewing events or parties, our region will be a destination for people to view this event. Indications are already that in places like Niagara, Hamilton, and Kingston, hotels are already booked that weekend. The complicating factor in our region is that our viewing area is bounded by a natural barrier and an international border. So if you can imagine, if the border wasn't there and the river wasn't there, people would continue to drive south, because the closer you get to that blue line that's in the center of the path, the longer the things will go dark. So people will get to our region, and because of the international border and because of the river, they will in fact probably stop. There are a limited number of roads and highways that link our region. School boards are pivoting that day. I think most, if not all, have now pivoted to a PA day that day, so students will be home. And it's early spring, so are we concerned at all about an ice or a snow event? You recall that the first week of April last year, we had a fairly sizable ice storm. While this winter has probably been anything but a winter to this point, there is still that potential, which could be a complicating factor on that day or in the days leading up. Something else we should mention as well, only about half, maybe a little less than half of the island of Montreal will in fact be in this path of totality. Many of those who are in that area are likely to head to the South Shore for a better view, but we are keeping our eye on the fact that with traffic delays likely in Montreal, as viewers attempt to head south, will they pivot and make a move into South Glengarry perhaps? And you can note there that there's a lot more of South Glengarry available to watch this event than perhaps there is in Montreal. So we're keeping an eye on that. Of note, Warden McDonald, the RRCA has no plans to host any formal viewing events at any of its facilities at this time, and the St. Lawrence Parks Commission is working to determine the feasibility of opening the Long Sault Parkway to augment some viewing locations. With that, Warden McDonald, I'll turn it over to Catherine.
Perfect. Thanks, Todd. Excellent. So as Todd mentioned, even without specific viewing parties or events, we expect people to enter our region. One of the impacts that we're monitoring is the cellular networks. These could be impacted in our region by a sudden influx in thousands of visitors. We do have a meeting next week, an all-partners call with the province, and they're currently meeting with telecom partners, and they'll have some more information to bring to us next week in terms of where things stand with that. There's also potential for impacts to 911, and this could increase some response times for our emergency services. Some of the questions that we're asking when forecasting for potential gathering locations are, which areas have been used before to host events? What was the attendance at the largest event held at that location? And what type of infrastructure do we have there in terms of washroom facilities, trash receptacles, and parking? And one of the reasons why we're having those discussions and bringing those topics up and discussing that with our local partners is that there's value in planning in advance in terms of how you want these areas to be accessed, utilized, and left following the activity. And whether or not there are specific events planned, if they're public spaces, the public are going to be drawn to those areas. So how do we want to manage the use of those really key viewing areas? There is a viewing event that is planned in the area. So Todd and I have been in discussions with the St. Lawrence Parks Commission, and they are promoting the Chrysler Farm site as a viewing location. They have purchased 10,000 Eclipse glasses that they plan to pass out. And what they're discussing is doing kind of an Eventbrite where they're charging for vehicle access to come and utilize that area. There is only space for a few hundred vehicles, and so we've had a lot of discussions with them about how to manage that type of traffic coming in. They are looking at having parking at the golf course and at Chrysler Beach, as well as parking by the monument, and then they're investigating being able to use the airstrip, potentially more for busing parking, but it'll depend on whether or not it is a registered airfield, so they have to make sure that they have permissions, even though it's out of season, to utilize that space. So conversations that we've been having around that is we know that there is going to be a draw with an event happening at Chrysler, at the Chrysler area. So we want to make sure that we're putting some additional safety precautions around County Road 2. So we have had conversations with the OPP as well as with the St. Lawrence Parks Commission on how we can plan for that impact along that section that day. And we are looking at things like a temporary speed reduction for a certain area of that roadway to improve safety as well. And we're having ongoing discussions with our partners on how to move forward on that piece. So mitigation efforts to date. The counties is a member of a provincial working group, so that includes affected municipalities in the province, as well as Emergency Management Ontario, and a number of other provincial agencies. Just to give you an idea, at our last All Partners call, there was roughly 230 people on that call discussing this. So quite a bit of coordination going on. We've had discussions in those calls with the MTO. They're really looking at the impacts on the 401, messaging on the 401. The Ministry of Health is looking at some consistent messaging across the province in terms of viewing and how to safely do that. And of course, our Emergency Management Ontario partners are talking about how can we mitigate the potential impacts those days on our communities that are in that path of totality. Here locally, Todd and myself have met with the local municipalities, with the CEMCs and the emergency information officers. We're planning to have another follow-up meeting to discuss strategy. We're also having a meeting next week with our partners in the City of Ottawa, their Emergency Management Department. As Todd mentioned, that spillover from Ottawa is a concern for us, so we want to talk to our Ottawa partners in terms of what are they hearing in their area and how can we, work together to potentially mitigate some of those impacts. In terms of PPE, The county has discussed health and safety, especially for our roads crew that are going to have to be out working during that time frame. And as Todd mentioned, we don't know what to expect that day weather-wise. So we've gone ahead and purchased some good plastic approved eclipse glasses, and we've been very cautious in what we've purchased. We did collaborate with one of our health and safety organizations to make sure that we were buying ones that met the ISO standards, and we'll be distributing those out to our staff. We've also identified some key people and points of contact for better communication among our partners the day of the eclipse, and we're coming up with an operational plan for that.
So I'll just jump back in and talk a little bit about some of the communications efforts that we have planned with respect to this event. Obviously it will be an all hands on deck for the month of March with respect to communications and getting the word out on this. So we will prepare a communications campaign that will include regular social media posts, traditional media engagement, and web updates. You will note if you've gone to our webpage already, we've kind of turned the top half of that page into a pointer to a page we have on our site that focuses specifically on this event. Most of our work with respect to communicating will begin the first week of March and will last for the balance of that month leading up to Eclipse Day. Local municipalities and partner organizations will be encouraged to share this material, and our campaign will include things like how to safely view the eclipse, advising people not to stop on the side of the road during this event, and we'll also focus as well on some of the best places for visitors to our region to view the eclipse. This will help in marshaling people and deploying resources on that day.
So if you live in SDG counties, the best view is at home. Local residents who live within the path of totality will be encouraged through social media messaging and public service announcements to view the eclipse from the serenity of their backyard or their balcony. Residents will be welcomed at alternate viewing locations, but in an effort to mitigate traffic congestion, it is advised that those who can view from home should do so. Of note, currently, the local municipalities and SDG counties have not yet identified preferred viewing locations, but we have posed those questions out to everybody to really think about where you traditionally would have people congregate, and especially along that waterfront area. And that we should be prepared to deal with sudden influxes of people and vehicles the day of the eclipse. Should we activate the Emergency Operations Center? So, there remains some uncertainty with respect to what we can see that day in terms of the traffic. Weather could be a factor that could limit numbers. But internally, we've discussed that we will stand up our Emergency Operations Center, and we'll have it stood up as of Friday. And the reason we're doing that is that in areas that have experienced this type of total eclipse, we've seen where there starts to be an impact 24 to 48 hours in advance on the communities that people are moving into, because they want to get in, get situated, and then even get set up, up to 24 hours in advance at their preferred viewing location. So we'll be fully ready to monitor what's occurring in the area as of Friday. And we're also going to be taking that opportunity to work with our new Alertable software, which is a new rapid communication software that we've adopted for our emergency purposes here. And we'll be putting together a key contact list of all the folks that we want to be communicating with that day and getting feedback from. So we'll be looking to roll that out as well. And it should be very positive to assist us in our operations throughout the weekend and throughout the day on Monday. And with that, thank you.
Well, very impressive report. Would have thought of all those issues that we would have had for sure. Questions or comments? Councillor Broad.
Yes, thank you, Warden. Thank you for your presentation. South Dundas has already begun their planning, as Chrysler Farm is very local to us and in our municipality, and we do expect a large influx of people, which we expect to have all of our staff, our roads, water, and recreation staff, all part of this day, whether it's traffic control, following up on activities, garbage cans, washrooms, many questions. We already started to work with industry on start times of their hours of work, as people have difficulties traveling to and from work if their quitting time is around 3 p.m., as roads are going to be jammed. jammed. Major concerns on the 401, people stopping to view it on number 2. So lots of things. So we're starting that, and obviously we'll work with Catherine and Todd and the team through our CAO and our group. But I would ask that the county's teams, roads teams, they be made available to work in any way during the plan. Not sure what that activity may be, but I want to make sure that all of our staff within our municipalities and SDG are available to do any activities that might be required for this day.
Yep, thank you. Great questions. Councillor McDonald, then Councillor Dencham.
All right, my item's a small one, and I hope I don't become a fuddy-duddy. With the purchase of the glasses, were those also purchased for lower tiers, or was it just the upper tier with your purchase?
So our roads department purchased them for their staff. What I've done is I've shared the information with all of our local municipalities in terms of where they could place those orders and numbers.
Is there any retailer locally that will be providing those glasses?
Not that we're aware of at this time, Warden McDonald.
Okay. Councillor Dencham, then Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and thank you for the presentation. It sounds like we're doing everything possible to make sure that this is a safe event. I'm just wondering whether or not our tourism department has thought about this as a bit of an opportunity. We have people who are coming in for a 3-minute viewing who are obviously prepared to travel to our county, and whether or not there's any material we can hand out, or it's probably too late to hand out sponsored glasses or anything like that, but something that just will potentially bring people back in future.
Through you, Warren. So I do know with our discussions with the St. Lawrence Parks Commission that they were talking about potentially having a bit of a vendor exhibit area. And so we've made our tourism coordinator, Corinne Belanger, aware of that, and she's been in on some of the talks as well.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser and then Councillor Broad.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm just wondering if if there is information about vendors for those safety glasses, because everything seems to be well managed and well planned for the event, but to the comments about the glasses and the availability to the public. Mr. Warden, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for a local vendor, a local retailer to be asked if they would advertise that they're selling the glasses, and maybe some way to ensure that those that want to purchase glasses have an easy spot to go to. That's just my thought on that.
Councillor, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, Warden McDonald. We've begun those processes on a kind of a general, from a general perspective. So on that web page that I was talking about, there is a drop down where you can go to purchase reputable solar eclipse glasses. The one caveat I would suggest is that if you are purchasing, and this goes out to the public as well, please ensure that you're purchasing glasses that are in fact ISO approved and are safe for this event. There can be some cases some bad actors who are selling you things that are supposed to be safe, but the last thing you want to do is look at the sun with something that is supposed to be safe and may not be safe. So just a little bit of information there. We've listed those reputable locations that we're aware of on our website, but we can certainly make some efforts to determine if there are local options that kind of fill that void. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Broad.
Yeah, 2 other points to answer Councillor Dancer. We have been in talks with the Parks Commission about tourism activities, tents, vendors, so that's in progress. So we'll share whatever information we have. And lastly, we are also, just to note for other municipalities, we are staffing our fire halls with firefighters during that entire day so that their travel times to the hall won't be affected by traffic patterns.
Excellent. Councillor McGillis, then Councillor St. Pierre.
Just a question, thank you. What are the costs of these glasses so people would be prepared to pay for them?
That's a great question. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what we ended up spending for those. Do you recall?
So it depends on the type of glasses you're getting, and the price goes down in terms of like the bulk orders. For our patrol staff, we went for the more expensive glasses, like the plastic hard ones, and they're significantly more expensive than the paper. Like if you are buying the paper ones, I think the cost for some of them comes down to the, less than $1 range, buying in bulk, but the plastic ones, I'd have to double check with our Rose department, but it was a bit pricier. And then there were some shipping costs too.
Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Warden. I guess one of the concerns I have, just thinking about traffic, is an emergency under an emergency situation. I recall the first year or two of Pumpkin Inferno, the 401 was backed up for quite a ways. You know, we're going to have a lot of traffic, and South Stormont's going to feel this, South Dundas is going to feel this, North Dundas somewhat, but I just want to ensure that there's a great plan in place that should we do witness all these people coming, and if there is an unfortunate event on the 401 where the 401 is shut down, you know, I know detours through South Dundas. I just want to make sure that there's a proper plan just in case an emergency happens during the event, and that there's proper personnel that's properly trained to be able to flag, to be able to direct, to be able to do whatever they have to do to ensure that the transportations, the emergency vehicles, whatever is needed, it does have a clear path of direction of where they're going. So I am a little bit concerned with the influx of people, just in case hopefully nothing happens, but lo and behold, I think the 401 does witness some accidents from time to time between Cornwall and Kingston, so that'd be just one of my concerns as well. So I'm sure you've already thought your way through that. So if you could just elaborate, and if not, that's great if you could think about that. Thank you.
Through you, Warren?
Go ahead.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So on that exact subject, we've had extensive conversations internally about just that. So if you've got 10,000 people who have showed up at Chrysler Park, for example, to view this event in the springtime when the ground isn't like super strong, there's the potential for twisted ankles, broken limbs, God forbid. So we've talked to our partners, not only with the OPP, but as well as SDG paramedics, to invite them to the table to discuss how we're going to manage that event that day. Getting people across a busy Highway 2. We've talked to the OPP about standing up resources at that location to ensure that safe travel back and forth. We've talked to the Parks Commission to ensure that they have those facilities available. They've got trash receptacles available, enough bathrooms, bringing in porta potties, that sort of thing. Anytime you get a group of individuals together like that, there's always the potential for other emergencies. I hope I haven't spoken too much, but I think that's kind of what we've been looking at.
Yeah, I'll add on to that.
Yep.
And in terms of the 401, certainly there's an opportunity as well. Next week we have an all-partners call on the 27th, and MTO is on that call. I know MTO was assessing potentially some detours, but they hadn't gone forward with any particular decisions yet, but it'll be a good opportunity to speak to them next week too, and talk about those concerns, and those concerns have been brought up at those meetings. We've also had discussions with the health unit. It's my understanding that they've been in talks with the local hospitals, because there's also that concern that with an influx of people, and then if you have compounding emergencies, there could be also some pressures that we see on our emergency department, so making sure that they have those staffing levels in place, and they're on notice too that there could be an escalation of an incident. So those conversations are certainly happening, and one of the things we'd like to do at an upcoming meeting with our local partners is Hastings County was very agreeable to send me some of their scenarios that they're working through. And so having those conversations with our EMS and our OPP and our local fire and partners in the room about, exactly what you're saying, what happens if we do have this incident. So we have that pre-conversation and there's some familiarity around it. So we're working on those pieces.
Okay, if there's no further questions, thank you for your report, and look forward to another report, I'm sure, in March. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 11.4, administration update for February. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So again, just providing some dates and some meetings that occurred in January. January was very much about Roma preparing for delegations, and I think that coming out of those delegations, we're going to continue for preparation to follow up for AMO, so for both of those delegations. But also, thank you for the feedback this morning on a couple of those other items on our agenda. I'll start to initiate some material and communicate with the warden and come back to council maybe with a plan to look at advocacy on a couple of other items. Wanted to highlight that the warden has a curling bonds bill coming up on March the 2nd, and also wanted to indicate that we are currently recruiting for many of our summer students. So if anybody is out, we're trying to promote that on our website, but we want to encourage students to apply for some great opportunities to work with the counties. And with that, we also have the Good Roads Conference coming up on April the 21st to the 24th. And with that, Mr. Warden, I think that's a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. Maybe not, I guess related to this. I'm understanding that it's possible half loads are starting tomorrow. Is that correct? It's something that's earlier than normal, and I kind of understand why when you look at the weather we've had and the weather we're going to have, but I know there's businesses that are scrambling now and not overly thrilled. I've had a few calls. But anyway, just to make everybody aware, half loads are upon us already in February.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, ratification bylaw.
It's moved by Councillor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor Densham, that bylaw number 5440, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Just trying to buy 10,000 ISO glasses right now on Amazon, so just give me a second. Adjournment by resolution.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Guédon, that council adjourn to the call of the chair.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone, for